So I'm Felicity Jones, the founder and director of Thinking Philanthropy, which is a consultancy supporting impactful organisations for and not-for-profit around the world to secure the resources that they need to deliver their impact. Delighted to be joined today remotely by Alberto Biasio, who is one of the co-founders of Face Donate, which is the revolutionary platform that we're going to be talking about today. Also joined, I hope, remotely by Kay. Oh, she's there. Fantastic. Kay Johnson, MBE, who is the founder and CEO of LADA, which is an innovative food justice organisation based in Preston. She will explain much more about that. Also joined to my immediate left by Jane Dalton, who is the founder, and she calls herself a creative catalyst. She's so much more than that as well. She's creative catalyst for groundswell innovation, works on place-based inclusive innovation, regionally, nationally, and internationally. The far left, Tanya Ellsworth, who is the founder and director of TP Financial Solutions, based in Morecambe, and one of our real kind of local leads in sustainable finance and also corporate engagement with the community. And finally, to my right is Rory Southworth, who is the community manager for Fraser House Hub, which is hosting us today. Fraser House Hub was set up by Lancashire County Council to be an innovative co-working space supporting digital innovation and collaboration, and this is a great example of that. So in terms of how we're going to structure our lunch, I'm afraid we don't have lunch, but I'm hoping the rest of you do, is that I'm going to ask each of our panelists in turn to talk about why and how this space and really making it the most effective possible matters to them, and matters then to them as representative of the different sectors and the different segments that we know need to work together to build our resilient and innovative communities. Just to set the scene, Face Donate has no connection with our region in Lancashire. Face Donate is a national and an international innovation that Alberto will talk about. It's been funded now post-pilot stage by Innovate UK to test and scale the model of the platform. And in part because of the sorts of people on our panel and the sorts of places that we're talking from. We're also joined by Michael Hallam from the Ethical Small Traders Association based in the Lancaster region. It meant that we were able to offer a kind of laboratory situation to test it out, and with that support to scale. So we're working very hard to support Alberto and the team to spread that and to test it. We know we've been joined by people from our region and in fact globally. Please put any questions you have in the chat, and we'll have some time to return to those as we go forward. So to start with, though, I'm going to ask Alberto Di Biasio, the co-founder of Face Donate, to start by explaining what this is all about. We pitched it as a revolution in charitable giving. Alberto is now going to explain why. Thank you.
First of all, thank you all. Thank you all for coming here today, and thank you for joining us in this chat. And hopefully that it's going to bring some ideas up to all of us, and we can start using these new technologies to create impact. So, can you hear me clearly? Yes. Yes. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So let me start with this. So. Just a bit of a background about myself. I'm an economist. I studied at UCL. I'm in Italy. I'm Italian, as you heard, as you can see. I'm in Italy right now, but the innovation and the Face Donate has been piloted and expanded in London mainly in last year. So we started in 2021, or actually during the pandemic, with this idea of how can we help in a situation of crisis. We are two founders. We met at UCL and we created a prototype to see if our idea of effective, transparent giving could be tested. So after a few months of kind of hassling this, we kind of created a usable interface, and we started expanding it with food banks and different type of charities in Italy initially, then in London, and then in other parts of the country. We were awarded 3 months ago by IUK, by Innovate UK, as Felicity mentioned, and now we are here to see if this new idea or this new technology is appealing to businesses and charities outside of London. So again, as an economist, I started investigating what was the charity world looking like, and I could immediately see some big numbers and big problems. So in the UK, there are about 5 million people that report as not being able to nourish themselves effectively, so they suffer from food insecurity. And at the same time, food banks, which are the best way that people access to food, were able to distribute only 2.1 million of parcels last year. So there is a big gap between the demand of food and the ability to give this food to people on one side. And on the other end, we see corporations and businesses that want to help, and they don't know what is the most effective way to help most of the times. And retailers that can provide food are often throwing away a lot of it. So about 12 billion pounds of food get wasted every year in the UK. So maybe there is a way to do this better. And this is what we try to implement with Face Donate. And Face Donate tries to solve a problem, which is this. So often we use donation platform or technology, but we don't, often they lack from traceability and impact reporting. So we give, but we are not really engaged with our giving. We don't really have a way to feel part of this process of implementing and creating an impact. And this is drops down in the supply chain of giving and doing good. So individual beneficiaries at the end of the chain receive much less than is originally given by donors. Donors want to see how their donation is spent, because we're very much part of social media society. So having that feedback, having that engagement is part of something we are used to right now. And corporates, which are the biggest donor in our society right now, need to measure and need to see the impact they make when they give to charities, or when they have when they do something positive for the with their corporate social responsibility. Now they have kind of understood very well what to do with the environmental side of it and with the government side of it, but the S of ESGs is still a big problem, or seems to be a big problem for many of the companies we're working with. And the charities want to attract more donations. So what is the best way of attracting donation than showing what the donation are used for? So Face Donate connects all these parties together with a simple interface that by which donors can donate to many charities. Charities can report on their donation, or can drop it in, allocating their donation as digital credit to their beneficiaries. So the beneficiaries can use our app to buy what they need, their essential, at the local stores. And this creates, as you can understand, a number of benefits. The people that receive the donation, so the ultimate beneficiary, receive choice and dignity, and they can access culturally appropriate food, which generally food banks are not really able to cater for. So if you're halal, or if you have different dietary requirements, it's very difficult to eat at a food bank. At the same time, the local businesses are involved. So there's a good way to show that they want to help out the community, but they are not charitable entities, so they need to get paid for it. And they can use our app to somehow help the community and sell what their products are. And this has been very effective in two ways. So when corporates or the corporates we are now seeing, is this clear? Can just stop me if you want me to expand on something, or put a question in the chat. And this has been, so this process of making donation transparent and creating a flow of donation or a traceable flow of resources becomes very interesting also from a corporate, from a donor point of view. So corporates that are already giving to charities are often looking for new ways to involve their employees. And what a better way of involving their employees than allowing them to select which charities they prefer, so enabling them to have an impact, maybe matching them their donation through a simple interface, and then receiving that reporting back from the charity, also integrated in the platform. And this becomes very easy from the charity perspective, because realistically, it's as simple as creating an Instagram post to provide feedback to donors. And this is kind of the money in kind of side of the picture. And again, it's very easy. You create a corporate page if you want to, so like on Just Giving, create a corporate page. You can match the donation from your employees, or you can give donation if you don't want to involve your employees. The donation can be given to charity, and you can stop there. Charity report back, or they can be given again to the beneficiaries in form of digital vouchers, and the beneficiary shop at local retailers. And that information is fed back in a corporate dashboard that can demonstrate how many people, what your impact is, how many charities you have supported, and and creates an history of your impact throughout time, which becomes very accessible as a add-on or a substitute to your CSR reporting, to your business CSR reporting. Again, for the charity, very simple, same technology. They can allocate the credit to recipient. Recipient use it as a simple payment mechanism at retailers, and again, donors get the feedback. So we close the feedback loop to charities in a simple reporting tool. If you want, again, these are details, but this is kind of the overview I would like to give from the project so far. So if you have any questions, we can jump on the questions and make it easier for all of us to understand where we are. Yes? Can I hear you?
Yeah. Are we unmuted now?
Yes, you're muted, yeah.
You're okay. Oh, that'd be fantastic. So Alberto set the scene, and I know there's going to be lots of questions about how Place Donate actually functions and so on. We're going to halt a bit later on with the example of Fraser House and how we're transforming a physical donation, which is something using the tech that Alberto has described. But what we'd like to do is now take each of our panelists in turn to talk about how this looks from their perspectives. So we're going to ask Kay Johnson. Kay's perspectives are going to be talked about in parallel by Jane immediately afterwards as a corporate supporter of LADA and related food justice and other social justice organisations. I've asked Kay to talk and reflect for us today about some of the constraints that she and LADA have as an innovative social organisation with current ways of giving, and what this potentially offers to her. So Kay, thank you so much for joining us from Egypt, and thank you for sharing your perspectives today.
Well, thank you very much for asking me. Can I just ask, can you hear me okay? Okay, thanks. So yeah, my background's actually in nutrition, and I have managed nutrition projects and food poverty initiatives for about 30 years. I set the LADA up in 2015 as a social enterprise. And the idea is that I believe in food fairness for all. And what that means is that I believe that everybody should have access to affordable, fresh local produce without farmers and the environment and producers bearing the cost. I think it is possible. And what we're trying to do at the LADA is create a sustainable food system at a micro level. And I work alongside lots of other people who are trying to do the same across the country and also across the world. So there's lots of people doing similar work, trying to find innovative ways to create food fairness. So before COVID, we felt like we were making headway in terms of getting people to listen to our way of working and to look at ways of addressing food poverty which are dignified and empower people. There was lots of funders who were also looking to find initiatives which helped people out of the food bank system. So a lot of the work that we were doing was following on from the work that the food banks were doing and looking at how we could transform from that model. And then COVID hit, and then all of a sudden we went into this crisis. So what we did, it was all about food aid, and the situation was very different. And what we decided to do was provide meals for people. So all of the meals were made with fresh local ingredients, and we were trying to provide people with healthy meals, people who couldn't get out, people who couldn't afford to buy food, and that kind of work. What we realised with any kind of food aid initiative is that you create a dependency. So we started to look at ways of being able to get people out of the situation and become more empowered and more kind of independent. So we were doing that, and it was going quite well, and it looked like that funders were starting to look at ways of getting people out of the situation. But then now we've got the fuel crisis. So this is now that changed the landscape again. And so the main challenges that we have now is the conversations that we are having with funders is that we can't look at a lot of the programs that we run are around educating people, and the arguments that we're getting is that it's kind of gone back to the kind of food bank model that we have to look at. It's a crisis, so this is the only way that we can address it. I feel that that there are lots of ways that we could, if we all work together, that we could find ways that address the immediate issue and tackling the crisis and look at the long-term solutions at the same time. I think it's possible, but we need to be able to have conversations with people and be able to, I think, allow us to experiment a little bit. In the 30 years I've been working, I've never experienced things as difficult as they are now. But at the conversations like this, and people like Jane and Felicity who are willing to explore other options. So I'll stop there and happy to answer any questions.
I think what we're hearing there is why it's so important that organisations can be transparent and honest about what is going to make the most impact. I'm going to introduce now and ask Jane Dalton to pick up the threads of that from her perspective in grants on innovation.
Thanks, Felicity. I've got a loud voice, so hopefully you can hear me, but if not, then just signal. And having conversations with Kelly, it was very clear that she's an innovator in her field and trying desperately to solve these long-term issues as much as she is the short-term crisis. But we know there's a fundamental failure in the funding system around innovation and social value. And we wanted to be part of making that, part of the solution. How do we do this? Well, the first thing we can do, obviously, is to be a funding partner. It's what everybody needs, just to ante up with some cash. And I'm sure you appreciate as a small business, that's a conversation that we don't enter into lightly. You know, we've got restricted resources, as all companies have. You know, we're UK, we're what, something like 98% small business. How do we expect, you know, corporate CSR policies that are all shifting to volunteer days instead of cash to bridge the gap that we know we've got in social value funding and social enterprise? So we have to make sure that if we give cash, if we give our time, particularly if we give our time, and if we give in kind, it's really having impact for us. And that's in lots of different ways. So it's got to fit with our values, which obviously working with Alada does. Social innovation is something we do a lot. It has to be something that we can talk about openly with our employees so that they're very clear on that, what we're trying to build within the company. We don't believe in waiting till we're all millionaires within the company and then growing the conscience. You know, this is something we're doing now. And they have to be brought into that as important, because sometimes it's the difference between, oh, we won't upgrade office furniture or whatever it might be. We're going to invest in this because it's the right thing to do. But we also need to make sure, particularly if it's funds, that this is something that's going to have a ripple effect, that somebody's going to be able to multiply, and we need to see that evidence base come back to us so that we say, great, this is a good decision, this is strategic, this is something that's having long-term impact, and really building that local ecosystem out with us. We're very much embedded in our, you know, Northwest community, so it's absolutely crucial to us. So I think that covers most of the key points, but I do think that the model that is demonstrated by Fraser is a brilliant one, and having that platform that really understands the lived experience of trying to give, but sort of doing it almost despite the structural barriers, I think is brilliant. And I think if it can be sort of extended into a way to factor in people giving time, I think that would really open up the sort of small business offer in terms of being able to support local charities and social enterprise.
Thank you so much, Jane. And really what we wanted to do today is show why and how it can function. We're all committed to supporting that innovation, supporting inclusivity, supporting resilient and productive communities. But this has to function within each of our starting points. So you're a small business. What does that mean? And I think some of the things you've touched on there are also about things like employee retention. We know that there's a generation that are making choices about where they work, but we have to be able to show that to them. And I think that's where the integration of impact reporting with a dashboard that's explicitly designed to report on CSR, that aligns with the Sustainable Development Goals, for example, which goes all the way up into investment that Tanya will touch on. It's thinking about each of those touch points and how it matters. I'm going to ask Rory now to pick up the perspective from Fraser House. We're sitting in this world of tech.
So Fraser House has community. We have over 90 members and over 90 businesses in the space. So there is charitable action that is happening all the time through the different businesses, but it's not necessarily all linked up, and there's no way for me as the community manager to track that at all. We already had a chosen charity, Olive Branch, where we do have donations that go in, but tracking who puts what into a bin of donations is next to impossible for me. And that doesn't really necessarily help me work out how we can improve, how Fraser House can be better in these actions, and also bringing the technology to a level where everyone's very much used to. In the tech hub here, having an app where we have to do is scan a QR code to then just hit donate and donate from there, just works a lot easier than it's a better flow for the type of people that we have here. Not trying to speak for all kind of 90 businesses here, but that tends to be the way that the other charitable donations happen here. And we do have a lot of activity around that. But having this specifically kind of gives us a more focus and a better way for me to track.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, I'm one of those businesses resident here. And I think, you know, it's about modes of behaviour, but it's also about the fact we're sitting in an institution that's been set up by a county council. So some of that kind of non-financial value and the reporting back is actually really critical to show the value
Very much so.
here. And to segue into Tanya, Rory also knows me well enough to know I'm also obsessed with the efficiency. This is fantastic. It's lovely to see people bringing in food that's going into a box that's going to be taken to an organisation that's going to distribute it well. And this is not a criticism of that. It's just that I know as an advisor to charities that a charity, as Kay said, needs to know who's giving to it, who's been inspired by that messaging. It's gold dust for an organisation to know that. They have no way of communicating with that group of donors. We're also not using effectively the financial systems that we already have. That's not a gift-aided donation, but it is a donation.
Yeah.
And we're missing that opportunity. So for me, it's also about a chance to test that out. I'm going to pass over to Tanya, who's got that kind of broader perspective, and as a company like James, really kind of deeply engaged in the community and support. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and it's really great to be here with everybody. So through our company, we worked for big corporates for a long time, and actually one of the reasons we set up 25jan Financial Solutions was the community bit, the charity bit. We want to be able to give through our community. And actually what we're seeing in this area in our district is so many local businesses want to be able to do that, but they're not quite sure how. They've got money that they want to give, they've got things that they want to give. I've worked in a few local charities, and we work alongside a lot of local charities, and we've done some work with Morecambe Bay Food Bank, MFC Community Sports. And one thing I've seen in both of those is both of those charities end up with a lot of stuff that they don't necessarily want. It's great that they're being given it, and it's great that people are engaging, and we're not taken away from that. But actually, you know, we've seen incidents where the food bank's getting given, you know, half-used tins of Brill cream. And it's thinking about, let's use people's generosity, but let's channel it in a way that's useful for the charity. And our view as a business that wants to give, it's understanding what the charities actually want, not kind of assuming we know what they want, it's knowing what they actually want. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of the time they do want cold hard cash, because let's be honest, they know how to spend that money best for them as a charity. So linking up with Felicity, who introduced us to Fraser, you can see in this area how much impact that could have. As businesses that want to engage in this space, and also, you know, we're seeing lots of individuals who are wanting to invest sustainably and in line with their values rather than just for gain. We need to measure that. We need an easy way of doing that. Through anything that we see, if there's a barrier, it just won't happen. So something like Face Donate just makes it so easy to do it. So those businesses who are going, I want to do something, but it's hard. Well, let's utilize technology like this, because if it's easy, they're going to do it, and all the charities are going to really benefit from that. You know, like you just said, scanning a QR code. If we have to take bins of food somewhere, or big businesses have to do that, that they're not going to engage as much. So I suppose that's where we're coming at it from, is ease, making sure the charity gets the decision making. Sometimes it's really, really patronizing in a way that we're assuming what that charity wants. Let's understand what they want, and if it's money, let's utilize technology like this to do that, rather than assuming and going to, you know, spending 100 quid on beans. They might not want beans, you know, they're drowning in beans, whereas actually that 100 quid, they know what the service user needs. They could have done something much better with that. So yeah, thanks Felicity for introducing us. I think it's a fantastic platform, and really excited to see where it goes, especially in our area.
Thank you for those perspectives. And the Olive Branch, who are the chosen charitable partner for Fraser House, couldn't join us today, but I was able to go and talk to them about the impact of this, and it fits into those words that you've all focused on, about kind of dignity, respect, autonomy, but also being effective. And something that Kay touched on, actually creating a space, actually it's your phrase, you talked about being a funding partner. And partnership requires transparency and honesty and trust and respect between both organisations. And the olive branch were very clear that they actually started off as a support organisation, not a food organisation. So they were preparing food for people to eat together, but with a view to providing wraparound support to those communities. Because of the crisis, they've actually had to drop that face-to-face in COVID and go into a food delivery organisation. And they want to be able to utilise this to tell that story better about why that was the correct response to that crisis, but their future vision is to return to the wraparound support. And if we can utilise local retailers for keeping people within the local economy, that also releases not only people's generosity, but also the time and the expertise of those voluntary organisations, which is largely, it's not in packing food boxes, it's actually in identifying people's needs and supporting them to do that. So if you have questions, comments, please, now's the moment. It could be about the individual organisations, or it could be about Face Donate as a whole. And I can just see something's just come in the chat there.
Kevin Goodall there is saying that the LBCVS Faith Foundation has the knowledge and the expertise of hundreds of local charities and is able to get funding to quickly and efficiently. So maybe an opportunity there for local business.
Perfect example.
Yeah. Thank you. And I should have explained, I know Yak and Kevin are joining us from that community as well. Lancaster also has a 50-year-old voluntary support centre that Yak is the director of. And indeed, it can be utilised at all levels there in terms of that. Helen, there's some other questions.
There's a really good question here from Nick about how the beneficiaries, charity beneficiaries, actually go about spending with the retailers.
Okay.
Alberto.
So I don't know if everybody caught that. So how do charity beneficiaries go about spending it? Alberto, I'm going to ask you to respond.
Hello. It's actually, the process is very easy. What we ask retailers, that participating retailers, to do is to sign up. We check that they are a real retailer and that they are a real business, and then we allow them to accept donations. After that, they basically create a profile page with a picture and the location. We put them on the map, and they will be able to accept payments. The transaction is very simple. The beneficiary or the client shops at the local store like they usually, like we all do, and at the payment they ask to pay with Face Donate, and they present a time-limited QR code they generate on their own phone, via their phone. By showing that QR code, the retailer takes a picture of the receipt they just printed, like in any regular transaction, and scans the QR code, and they get accredited for that amount. The payment gets in their bank at the end of the trading days, or after 48 hours after we checked the receipt that has been provided. This is important for us because we're in the process of automating this receipt checking process, which to us is quite interesting because one of the things that has been objected a lot of time is, what will people buy if we give them money? And realistically, from now, we've been doing this for 18 months quite consistently, and we had 2 occasions in over, I think, 2,200 transactions in which people bought something that wasn't allowed, so a beer or a bottle of alcohol. We tend to not, it's a matter of what charities want, but what we suggest is only products that are admissible for under 18 are purchasable. So no tobacco, no alcohol, and generally we don't want to buy phone cards because they become credit, then they're easily exchangeable. But everything else is generally allowed. We often forget that a person that goes to a food bank generally needs other things, like, I don't know, if I'm a mom, I need nappies for my kid, or I need the powder milk, all these kind of things that a food bank can simply not provide. You know, babies have different sizes. And this is one thing. The other thing on the previous question would be, it's fantastic if the Bay Foundation would be interested in having a conversation with us. Again, we are basically a tech for good company, so we offer a service. We would like our service to be known and people to use it. We don't want to get into anyone else. We just want to help people do what they already do generally.
Yeah. I just add to that, Alberto, that because you've now got that kind of, it goes back to Jane's point about kind of evidential build-up, particularly from the work with the Trusted Trust food bank in Hackney. You can also see the kind of choices that people make. So there was a comparison made, and we included that link in the mail out to everybody, and we'll include it to everybody who registered. We could see people making choices that were culturally specific as well in their food, that also took into account a greater quantity of fresh produce. You also have Face Donate has also been supporting another organisation based in Scotland, which is called Instant Labour, and that's been allowing people to access fresh milk to be delivered to their door. So there are other ways in which it's also feeds back to, excuse the pun, to what Kay was talking about, that this is about nutrition. That people can make their own choices about good nutrition, but that's also why the wraparound work of somewhere like the Larder is so important to explain as part of that. That we assume people can make those choices, and you can see that they do. They also need support for fresh and nutritious food that doesn't require a lot of cooking.
Just to build on that point, I was just remembering a conversation I had with Kay. I won't share many of the details, but it was about a potential funder who was kind of sitting with lots of cash saying, well, you have to get over this hurdle, this hurdle, this hurdle for us to give you any money at all. So prove to me that you can do this my way. It's a great analogy, isn't it? Because we always look at people with the funds that kind of go, oh, you know how to do things, or there's a certain patronage, and there's certainly a power hierarchy there. If we're not careful at any level of giving, we fall into exactly the same trap, telling people how to live their lives. It's not fair. That's not dignity. So to be able to get past that, those value judgments about somebody else's life, and how many biscuits they eat. Good God, if you're feeling low, you biscuits.
I don't think it's such an old-fashioned view now, you'll get what you're given, and hate that, it's almost like you'll get what you're given while you need it. So if we've got a frame and toss pie and a pot noodle, you'll get what you're given, and there's no respect for that, there's no respect on any level, and we need to move away from that, and using platforms like this will absolutely allow us to do that. It's not you'll get what you're given, you'll get what you deserve and what you need, it's that spin on it.
Yeah. And what you choose,
what you choose
as well. Obviously, we're hearing that thread going through, and now that hopefully our ecosystem. And thank you so much, Kevin. I think it was for adding that in.
We've got Rachel there that wants to ask a question. You'd like to unmute Rachel and ask a question. Thank you.
Hi, yeah, thank you very much. It's been really interesting. So yeah, I work at Food Futures in Lancaster, so we do a lot of stuff around building a local food economy. As well as working with the Food Justice Partnership here, and I'm also a trustee of Egg Cup, so we're a surplus food redistribution, like community food project. Oh, sorry, so a notification. I was just wondering, like, what kinds of organisations can sign up, I guess, as a charity, or is it mainly food banks, or is it other kind of food support projects? And is there a cost, or like, what's the long-term funding model for this kind of Face Donate more in general?
So, thank you for the question. Great questions. Realistically, we have what we are concentrating on is food banks. Why? Because there is some sort of a wider people are willing to listen when we talk about food banks in this period. We have been working with a different number of charities. So realistically from Minnie is one of them. She introduced us to other charities in Africa. So we've been having very different projects. What our goal is in the long term is to create this connection between donors and the cause they want to support in a more digital way. So that's our long-term perspective. Our from a funding model perspective, where before going into this, we analyzed what the costs of charities are. So realistically now, we all are aware of platforms like Just Giving. Just Giving costs about 50%. Doesn't matter if it's the donor or the charity paying it, is one of the two options. And then charities do have reporting costs that are up to 30% of their income. So that's a lot of money. What we suggest that is possible to do is to do two things: to ask charities to pay for a little bit for the allocation. So when they give the money directly to individuals, that is a service that usually, when we have enough data to sustain the fact that when money is given to people, the process is 3 times cheaper at all. So with £60, you feed 3 people for 3 days instead of 1 person for 3 days in the food bank model. So we ask a percentage fee on that. And we asked corporate donors to pay a little bit on their donation. That's what we are going for. When we work with large retailers, again, retailers are much used to a credit card charge when they work, so a little bit there as well. And this makes it very easy to keep the cost really minimal. What we need overall to run the platform in the future is only 10%, which is compared to the cost of charity overall, which is between 30 and 45, we think is really, really good.
So within that, it's also trying to think about a more equitable, it's about efficiency within the system, but it's also about a more equitable distribution, who's bearing the cost of that. And specifically in relation to food retailers, there is an argument that Face Donate have proven the value of in their partnerships in Northern Italy, which is that there's that this as a mechanism is driving more footfall to retain within the local economy rather than creating a separate and parallel.
Another thing that we've seen is that generally we don't ask donors to subscribe or to forget about their donation. So we want donors to see where their money is going, and 80% of our donors donate again after they get the feedback. So this is empowering for charities as well. And again, we've been doing this for a while. It's kind of, we're getting out of stealth mode. So these are kind of the first presentation I do, and or to a different audience, and you can tell this for sure. But we have plenty of materials, plenty of data, and we'd be very happy to sit down with a one-to-one conversation and really give you all the information to be confident that this is doable and this is worth doing, and it's gonna give you, basically help you bring more donation to your charities and help you service your clients better.
Thank you, Alberto. And fundamentally, as we said, it's this is you're already piloted, it's already working. There's obviously an absolutely urgent need to focus on food justice and wrap around others with, as Alberto's already pointed out, it's not just food justice, it's also hygiene, it's autonomy of that. Yeah, I was just going to do that, absolutely. So but just to return to Rachel's question, there's no constraints. This is a single kind of intervention to test, but the platform is there and is available for everybody already. And it doesn't have a constraint in terms of social enterprise or charity. It's about your ability to display the impact that is the key driver. And for me, as somebody who advises a range of organisations with different formats, from kind of ethical businesses through to pure charities and NGOs, for me, it's the impact that is the key. And you adopt the right form to deliver that impact. And for me, that's one of the things that really appeals about Face Donate, is that it can support the same ecosystem and doesn't take you into separate platforms. It also lowers the burden on very overstretched, already beyond agile organisations in terms of their impact reporting, with the intention it's also material that can be used for other sources, other reports and social media, of course, as well, to do that. Are there any other questions from the Zoom floor? as it were. Helena, I can't see the screen.
Nothing's come up yet on that. If anybody wants to raise their hand. Thank you. Yeah, if you'd like to unmute and ask a question.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for a really great presentation, all of you. And I think this is a really great project, by the way. So I kind of guess we know that a lot of food banks or a lot of food projects are struggling with donations anyway, and I think it's just going to get more difficult as supplies, and actually the cost of living affects everyone, and the donations are becoming quite thin. So this could potentially resolve that issue. But I kind of guess my question really is about age. I'm assuming, Alberto, this is aimed at people 18 plus. If that's the case, I think there is a real potential around young people. So we have young people that live in care systems. We have, we have young people that are independent living. So I think there's potential to kind of work on that agenda, but I can imagine that there's a great deal of sort of safeguarding issues and protocols that would need to be considered. And I kind of guess that's something that I would be happy to help support with. It's one of the areas that we work around. We've got wide networks with young people and people that support young people in independent living. But generally, as Felicity said, we run the Bay Foundation, which is supporting charities and connecting philanthropists by donations, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to have a much bigger conversation in terms of how we could work with each other. So the question is around young people, but also an offer in terms of how we could work together on this.
Yeah, this sounds exciting. Realistically, the biggest thing is, as you rightly say, safeguarding. So how are people going to use the resources? There are two aspects to this. So if the charity or if the tutor is already legally entailed to give that safeguard over the youngsters, that the process would be much easier, I guess. Then there are two aspects. So the question would be, how do we manage expenditure today with the youngsters? So is there a way today to have a prepaid card or something like that that gives you that traceability of expenditure? I doubt it. I looked into it. And that second one is we foster this full cycle and full feedback loop of transparency. And this is what we want to engage, not because we care about or we want to snoop into somebody else's life, but because we want to demonstrate that what is needed to everyone and is simple and there's nothing to hide, because basic things is what everyone needs. And if you need that 10 quids to buy a book or to buy a newspaper or to buy your data for your mobile phone, nobody's really gonna say no to that if he's asked to the right level. So I think that this would be great to set up a project or to have a better conversation or to do something together. Thank you.
We do have to close. I know that this is the start of many conversations. Our intention today was to showcase the amazing thinking and the development that Face Donate already is, and to start to think together about where we could go with this together. So thank you, Kay. Sorry about the Wi-Fi. Rory, Jane, Tanya, but I am going to say most importantly Alberto, for having the bravery to think of this in the first place and to share it. And I look forward to seeing where we're doing this together.